Hello, this is Jonathan with JM Addington Technology Solutions. As most of you know, we've been providing some pretty regular updates about COVID-19 with a special emphasis on Tennessee. Today I wanted to try to do something a little bit different, and instead of putting together a written blog post on the numbers, I'm just going to take you through the report that I actually used to pull the numbers. So I've got up an application here called PowerBI. It's a business intelligence application put out by Microsoft, and I've got it connected to some different data sources, including the COVID tracking project from the Atlantic and the Tennessee Department of Health. I've put a lot of different pages along here in the bottom. There's only a handful of them that I still use for most articles. I keep the other ones there just in case. Let's start out just by looking at the U.S. as a whole. So this shows our COVID-19 new cases in the blue columns versus the rolling average. And you can see basically from the start of the pandemic to where we are today, with really a low on the 7-day average of 21,000 new cases, which is a substantial decline from the peak when we were up at 31,000. So that's down by almost a third. That's measured a little bit by the success that we've had in New York and New Jersey. So if we take those out of the equation, you can see that our new cases are still mostly flat. And if you want to compare mid-April, here's April 10th with 17,800 new cases that day. We're at 18,600 new cases a few weeks later. So this isn't to try to say that things are not improving across the U.S. We've made this post or this point in written posts a few times, but just that there are multiple different ways that COVID-19 is playing out across the United States. If we look at the rolling average of deaths, this is really where we've got some better news right now, where you can see that's declined much more steeply over the last few weeks. Here is just a week into May, and we're averaging 1,800 new deaths a day. And now we're down to 983. You'll note we do use these 7-day averages almost exclusively. These dips that you see, or these spikes, are almost certainly not because people are just more likely to die on Tuesdays. It seems like it's probably a reporting lag from the weekends. So we find that the 7-day averages are much more useful. But again, if we take out New York and New Jersey, we see that flatten out a little bit. And if we dug in some more, especially into the New England corridor, we could make that line go, much more further up. But again, the point isn't to be manipulating the data, which is one of the reasons I want to show you what I actually go through when we prepare these reports. But just that what we see nationally does not really reflect what's playing out at a sub-national level or a regional level. By the same token, we could look at just New York and New Jersey. There we go, we'll get both of them in there together. And in that case, we really see a remarkable success, and we see that lockdown that happened in March and April having, almost a textbook example of what we'd expect, where it goes up exponentially, unfortunately, but then it tapers off fairly quickly in almost perfect bell curve. One of the other things that we like to look at is the positive testing rate. And so this is the percentage of new positive cases divided by the total number of tests. And again, we're using 7-day averages. And this is looking at a 3-week window. And you can see that we just finally, 3 weeks ago, nationally came under about a 10% positivity rate, which is the rate that we're supposed to be aiming for, as a number of national figures such as Dr. Scott Gottlieb have put out. And so that's pretty encouraging. Let's go back and take a look at Tennessee specifically. So I'm going to unselect the states and just go to Tennessee here. And again, we see stuff moving along pretty straight. So these humps that you see here, we believe, based on the Tennessee state briefings, are from targeted testing at congregate care facilities. Those two in particular would be prisons. I'm less sure about the uptick here. The state's been less transparent over the last few weeks as they've dropped their daily briefings. In any event, though, the number of new cases that we're seeing in Tennessee, even if there is a slight uptick over about a week there, is just, again, nothing like New York, right? New York and Tennessee are just uh, night and day apart. And Tennessee's also done a much better job of testing a greater proportion of COVID-19 positive persons, which means that the numbers that we see here are more likely to accurately reflect the actual number of COVID-19 positive people. If we look at deaths, we're going to clear out New York and New Jersey here and just go to Tennessee. And again, you see, it's not that we've had none, but on any given day, the average has been pretty consistent, staying in between, about 4 and 10, 4 and 9, something like that. And again, if we look at our positivity rate, Tennessee has just done a really great job here. You'll see that the x-axis moved, where before this top line was about 10%, in the middle was 5. You see that Tennessee's positivity rate is getting up to maybe just about 5% there. And again, there's a good chance that's attributable to Tennessee going to test places where they know they're going to find more cases. And the positive testing rate is really just meant to help be an indicator as to whether or not we are testing enough people. So if you see a positive testing rate above 10%, then it's a pretty good sign that you don't have enough tests being performed. If we want to look at just the cases around Knoxville, this is coming from the Tennessee Department of Health. Again, you can see, other than the uptick at the beginning of the pandemic, there's not a whole lot of variation. I know it can look like it a little bit here, but when this black line is our 7-day average, I mean, it's moving between 10 and 20. That's not a big jump in absolute numbers. It might be statistically significant, but it's not going to fill up the hospitals. We see this big jump here in Loudoun. That's Monterey mushrooms. And I'm assuming, but I don't know, that those are follow-up cases here. These yellow spikes. My assumption would be that those are more cases coming out of Monterey mushrooms, but I don't know that for a fact. Purple is Knox County. You can see that we've had a couple of days in a row of jumps here with 9 new cases Tuesday, 11 new cases today. Dr. Buchanan of the Knox County Health Department said that those were attributable to clusters, and again, 2 days worth of data is just it's not enough to be concerned about. If they were at 0, it wouldn't be enough to celebrate either. You really want to see a week or two's worth of data. And here we've got basically the same thing, only we're narrowed down to just Knox County here. And you can see that for the last few weeks, our average number of new cases per day, is really going between about 2 and 7, which out of a countywide population of 470,000 is just extremely low. It's great. You might notice that -1 cases are counted by the where the person who tests positive lives. And so sometimes a case will be counted against a county based on where the person was tested. They'll find out they don't live there, and then they will remove that. So for example, it's possible that John Doe was tested here on April 17th, and then they found out on April 20th, maybe a day when there were no new cases, that John Doe was in Blount County and quote unquote transferred the case to Blount County, giving Knox County a -1 for the day. Again, a great reason why we look at averages instead of the numbers for any specific day. And finally, we're going to go to this kind of unofficial map we've put together. And this is new cases by county in Tennessee over just the last couple of weeks. So if you go to the Tennessee Department of Health's website, you can see a map that looks a lot like this, but it's cumulative cases, which is less helpful if you want to know, what things are doing today. And really what we see here is mostly more the same. Shelby County still has 1,000 new cases in the last 2 weeks. Davidson County, 1,000 new cases in the last 2 weeks. Rutherford down to about 300. Wilson down to 70. Robertson 176. But again, this whole area has been a hot spot in in Tennessee since the beginning. If there's something notable here, it's probably seen this uptick in Putnam with 224 cases over the last couple of weeks, and Hamilton with 351 new cases over the last 2 weeks. By comparison, Knox County only has had 59 new cases over the last 2 weeks, and total cases, I believe, is still under 400. So I don't know anything specific about Hamilton County. I haven't dug into that today, but that is certainly the sort of thing that would look like a hot spot developing. Hey, I'll put a link to this report in the comments or in the video description. You can actually go online and browse the same thing yourself. And if you want to take a look at any of these, you can use these filters on the left to look at any specific state or combination of states. And there's a whole bunch more pages for you here to explore. A lot of them show the same data, just in different formats. All right, well, that's your update for Wednesday, May 27th, 2020.